Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate with host Glenn Sutherland.
Welcome to another episode of A Canadian Investing in the U.S. This week my guest is Hi Locke. Hi, I saw your presentation in North York. When was that? Was that February or January?
Yeah, I think it was in the beginning of February.
Beginning of February anyway. So I've been wanting to get him on the show. We finally got this all organized and we're here. Hi, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, I started real estate. I got my license in 2010 and then started selling real estate back then. It was pretty hot at that point, so I did a lot of transactions, started there. But even before that, I really wanted to do investing before actually selling real estate. So I realized that being an agent can get my feet wet and understand the process a whole lot more. So as soon as I got my license, I probably started investing 2 years after that, or maybe a year after that, condos in Toronto. And then I took a program called Steve Martell. Yeah. His name was Steve Martell. He's not doing it anymore, but I took one of his weekend courses and then took his mentorship, met a lot of people, started investing in the US, and then I started investing in single family first, then I moved up to multifamily, and then that's pretty much how I started.
That's awesome. So yeah. I know that you're doing the trailer park homes. What's your background now? What do you mostly, is it all trailer park homes or are you doing some other stuff as well?
No, it's mostly multi-residential, so multifamily and mobile home parks.
Yep.
So that's my main focus right now.
Cool. All right, let's dive into it. His presentation was on the comparing multifamily real estate to mobile home park real estate. So let's jump in. I even made the mistake of calling it a trailer park just a minute ago. So let's talk about some misconceptions with mobile home parks.
Yeah, so especially me in the beginning, when it was never mobile home park when I first, knew what it was. The first time I knew anything like trailer parks that even existed was like shows on TV, like Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah.
I had a misconception. It was just like poor people or just people in the country or just, stuff like that, right? Mm-hmm. Until I realized, I joined Bigger Pockets probably in 2014. No, actually before that, probably 2012. Yeah. Because I bought my first mobile home park in 2014. So obviously, probably 8 months before that, actually, even 8 months before I actually made a purchase, that's when I started studying it. So I pretty much jumped in it pretty quick. Yeah. Because when I started with multifamily, it's all good. You have multi-tenants, you have a property manager to manage it. But now when I saw mobile home parks, I was like, wow, there's opportunity there, because the first thing that I noticed was the higher cap rates, right? Yeah. But then, you always think higher cap rates means more volatility or more risk, right? So I delved into it, right? And I realized, there's differences between multifamily, and the main ones is, I would say, majority of multifamily are city water and sewer. I mean, there's multifamily in the rural areas where you probably have septic and well water as well, right? But not as common mobile home parks, right? So that's one thing that's different. And the second thing, which is most intriguing to me, is the leasehold. Yeah. So you're pretty much leasing the land to the actual tenant, right? They own their own mobile home, right? They do all the maintenance. All you have to do is maintain the land. That was the most intriguing thing for me when I first learned about it, right? So then I just got more educated about it, watched some podcasts, read some books, and then I jumped right in. I mean, also the value add aspect too, which is very similar to multifamily, but I think the difference in terms of, I guess, having a property manager find tenants for you in a multifamily versus you finding, mobile home owners, right? So that aspect of it as well.
Cool. Okay, so we've decided that mobile homes as a viable option for real estate, where do you go? Where do you start to go find these deals?
Where do you find these deals? So the main sources is Mobile Home Park Store, Crexi, 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 and LoopNet. But LoopNet, the thing about LoopNet, if everybody doesn't know about LoopNet, that they're the subsidiary company of CoStar, right? So what happens is when you put a listing out there, it's through CoStar first, and then most of the subscribers look at it first. So once after the 2-week period where the subscribers look at it and then it ends up in LoopNet, chances are it's not that great, right? Yeah. Because it's pretty much looked at by, I would say, dozens of investors, right? So LoopNet wouldn't be the best source, but there's some deals out there for sure. But Mobile Home Parks would probably be up there with Crexi. Yeah.
Okay, so you touched on it earlier with the city water and city sewer. Let's talk about utilities a little bit and how it's different for a mobile home park.
Yeah, so preferably you want city water and sewer, right? Because you don't want have any maintenance whatsoever with it. You just let the city deal with it, and the tenants deal with it directly with them. But when you go into rural areas, it's not that common out there, right? So you'll have your well where where it can be different, right? I mean, it could be ones that's pretty good water where there's not much filtration involved, and there's ones where it's pretty hard water where there can be arsenic and all kinds of stuff, really hard water, right? So you need a lot of filtration systems before it can go into the actual tenants' homes, and it's EPA regulated as well, right? So you have to deal with those regulations as well. Not with just just the water, right? So it's a little bit more involved with it. That's on the water. That's on the drinking water side. Yeah. When we talk about the wastewater side, like obviously everybody is really familiar with septic, and that's with like a couple of homes, right? But when you're dealing with a larger mobile home park, chances are it's like wastewater plant, whether it's a lagoon, stuff like that, right? So yeah, and you need an operator to manage it pretty much full time.
Okay, and then for electrical, do you have it like? I'm assuming it's sub-metered. You probably have one major line that comes in, and then you sub-meter and bill it to the clients yourself, or do you does it go straight to the tenants and you don't even have to worry about it?
No, that's directly from the city. Okay. But you definitely need like your own. But as a park owner, you're responsible for that line up to where it enters the house, right? So yeah, it's like I prefer to have city water and sewer, but it's not like a deal killer. I mean, if you look at a park and it has like a private sewer, if it's really old and it's not maintained well, then there's red flags. But at the same time, there's opportunity there too, where you can kind of, you can build back to the tenants too, right? And at the same time, you can just use that to build your CapEx when the time is to like do major maintenance on it, right? So it's not a total deal killer, but most seasoned investors prefer city water and sewer, right? Yeah.
Just to compare everything, I know we've already divulged or determined that like the tenant, you don't have tenants, they're doing leasing land from you, so you don't have the same repairs to do. There's a lot less repairs, I would think.
Right.
What are some of the other comparisons with like say property taxes and other? What are the other differences between that and regular multifamily?
Okay, well, the taxes is not too different. I mean, you're pretty much okay. So if you own the land, you're only paying property tax for the land, right? Each mobile home has its own tax. It's not that much. It's like I think less than 100 a year. So it's not that huge. And whoever owns the mobile home is actually responsible for that.
Oh, okay.
So that there's not much of a difference there. But again, the main difference to me is it's how more passive it is if you're just leasing the land, right? Whereas multifamily, like you need a property manager. I'm not saying you don't need a property manager for a mobile home park, but you can kind of get away with it if you set it up properly. Like for example, if you have like Okay, if you have like 500 units or something, okay, no, you need a property manager for sure. But I'm saying, like, for example, maybe like a smaller park, like 50 to 70 units, right? You can probably get away if every tenant owns their own home, right? And you just have to, have one guy to maintain the grounds and just watch out with the place, and then you just set up a payment plan with all the tenants, and they just pay you directly. You don't really need a property manager to full time to watch the place, right? So.
Right. Yeah. Unless it's like Trailer Park Boys, and you need like somebody to keep the riffraff under control.
Right. So I like the passive aspect of that, right? Because you can buy a park, right? I mean, obviously, if it's value add, you got to put your time into it to fill the lots or whatever you need to do, right? But once you set up a plan of action where, all your tenants are set up to pay whatever bank transfer or Zelle, PayPal, those kind of instruments to pay your rent, right? And then you're pretty much good to go, right? You don't have to really dedicate that much time to it. I mean, again, it's the same thing with multifamily too, but from my experience, you definitely need a good property manager, because I'm sure you know the horror stories about property managers, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
You gotta vet them, obviously, but still, man, you can't sleep at night all the time. You know what I mean?
Oh no. What about insurance? Is there any differences in insurance? Is there some companies that won't even lend on this class of property?
No, not really. There's you'll always find people to give you insurance out there. Okay. I mean, like for example, I know a park owner. I asked them, right, because I saw his finance. I was actually looking to buy his park, but the numbers didn't work out, and he didn't have insurance on his homes. He only had liability insurance. Okay.
Yeah.
Because he told me, you know what, it's not in a floodplain. There's no tornadoes around here and stuff like that. So he doesn't really insure the mobile homes, right? So.
Yeah. Well, the mobile home is somebody else's, right? Unless you have park-owned homes. Yeah.
But he actually had a balance. I think it was 80 units, and he had about 55 and 25, the split, right? Yeah. So still 25 of the homes he owned. So like a project like that would be, okay, you know what? You transition those park-owned homes, so it'll be land lease only, so you don't have to worry about the maintenance. You know what I mean? That would be kind of like the plan of action for that kind of park, right?
Yeah, and you just touched on maintenance. So depending on what state you're located in, you're going to have grass or snow. Do you just hire a third-party company for that, or is the tenants responsible for their area, or how do you work that out?
For the grass or for the snow?
Either. Well, let's do both. Yeah. Okay,
so for the grass, they kind of have a visual of what their, I guess, portion is, right? There's no real plot line, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, okay, you know what, this is my kind of area, they're responsible for it. But there's actually local laws where if grass exceeds a certain length, then you'll get first you get a warning and then you'll get a fine, right? So as a park owner, you have to be on top of that too, right? So if they're for example, like I said, even if you don't have a property manager, you have one guy to walk around once every other day or whatever, and to see if they're abiding by that, right? And if they're not, you give them a notice, and if they don't do it a certain time, you have to do it for them, and when you do it for them, you're charging them. So yeah. So
okay.
So as a park owner, you're pretty much responsible for the common areas, right? The common areas, yeah.
Okay, and then I guess the other part of maintenance, like stuff that breaks, you just have a handyman or something that you call to do those sort of things, and
yeah.
If it's too big for him, he'll call the appropriate plumber or whatever is needed.
Right. Most of the guys who especially the ones that own their own mobile homes, they know how to fix them. I'm not saying all of them, but you'll find somebody, right? Like for example, that park that had 55 and 25 park owned and 55 they own their own. Yeah. I'll find at least one of those guys to help me with maintenance. Yeah.
Gotcha. Sure. And then CapEx compared to a multifamily, do you need to have more CapEx? I'd assume you need less CapEx because there's less stuff to break. How do you look at that?
Yeah, it comes down to how many tenant-owned homes. For example, if you buy something and all the tenants own them, there's not much CapEx. The only CapEx you really need to look at is roads, if like, for example, the electricity that's going into the poles, electrical poles, to make sure that they're sturdy. Just pretty much the real estate, like the land, right? Mm-hmm. To make sure it's on par. Yeah, that's pretty much it. But if it's private utilities, okay, that's a little bit different. That's when the capex is pretty much kicks in, right? I think we should talk about financing too.
Oh yes, financing. I assume that financing is going to be more difficult because I personally have a house that was classified as a modular home, even though it's a 2,000 square foot house with a foundation. It was built in a warehouse in pieces and transported and put together. There's no way you could ever move it, but it still has the classification as manufactured home, which made my life way more difficult, and I had to go through several lenders to find someone who would even lend on it. I assume you're going to have the same sort of thing doing a whole mobile home park.
No, I think people who are not familiar, if people are not familiar with mobile home parks, you need to listen right here. Okay, so part of my presentation, I said that the homes are not valued in a mobile home park. It's a lot rent, right? So when you underwrite it, okay, it's just like a multifamily. When you underwrite it, okay, this one bedroom, it's $550, right?
Yep. So
you look at the lot rent too for a mobile home park, right? So you own the home, the park owned home, and you're charging them $700 and you own the home too, and you do all the maintenance and stuff. The underwriters, they won't look at it as $700. They look at it as $350 or whatever the lot rent is, right? That's how they underwrite it.
Okay, so yeah, in that basis, it really makes sense to not own any of the houses, right? It doesn't help you financially for qualifying for loans anyway.
No. So it can be possible where, like, for example, for like that example that I told you, right? Like the 80 units, right? So they're gonna underwrite it as 80 lot rents, right? Yep. The 25 that the park owned homes, whatever the difference there, they won't loan you that.
Okay, so I guess yeah. So with all these things, whenever there's problems, it actually can work in your favor too, because you can. It's a negotiating tactic, and you're like, "Hey, I can't get lending on this," so either you could.
They're not. There's a possibility where they'll just lend you less than what you want, right? And you just pretty much have to put a larger down payment down. That's all.
Yeah, or you just get maybe you could get the previous owner to carry back part of it.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah. Get creative anyway.
Exactly.
That's the name of real estate, right? Get creative with all this stuff.
Right. And you're right. And some properties where it's difficult to finance, the seller pretty much has no choice to sell or finance it, because chances are no one's going to pay cash for something like that unless there's a huge discount. But chances are, if you can't get financing, they have to carry it themselves, right? Like, to me, it's the passive aspect of mobile home parks. That's the main thing for me, because when you really want to build your portfolio, right, you want to be as passive as possible. You don't want to give yourself a job. You don't want to buy a property where you have to spend 4 or 5 hours a day. I mean, a lot of people are okay with that, but like, if you want to build a larger portfolio, you don't want to give yourself.
No, you don't want that. No. I get that all the time when people are like, I could save all this money by not using property management. I'm like, oh, it's just another job. Mind you got to manage the property manager, but I think it's a lot less work than managing tenants.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when you did your park, did you use financing or did you use a vendor carryback? How are you owning it?
It was seller financing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But I had to put, they only carried back 60%. I had to pay 40% down. So yeah, it wasn't one of those 80% LTV. I don't think anybody would give you that unless like it's just a bad property, right? So yeah, I guess the last thing would just be like, the ones that the most common that investors look for is city water and sewer, like public utilities, and just majority tenant-owned homes, right?
Is it better to be in like warm states, or does it matter if you're getting these in cold states?
It's better if it's warm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Columbus. It doesn't even like Columbus, it doesn't snow that much in Columbus. I mean, I think 2018 was pretty bad. But outside of that, it wasn't that bad. But you would prefer something that's more down south, right? Where you don't have to deal with that snow, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, and it might be better for moisture and other things too.
I think rental in general, I think tenants in general, if they have a choice to be in a warmer climate, they would, right? I mean, I get if you grew up in a colder climate or Four Seasons or whatnot, you stay there, right? But yeah, I would prefer definitely a warmer climate for sure.
So, hi, if people wanted to get a hold of you, pick your brain and talk more about mobile home parks, where would they do so, or how would they do so?
Probably my Facebook page, Unlock Realty.
Okay.
That'd probably be the best place.
Cool.
All right. I'm on Pockets too, so if you can kind of, I guess, HAILOC, Google me on Bigger Pockets, then there's another way too.
Perfect. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming on the show.
All right, Glenn. Thanks, man.